Good morning, friends. Today I came up with another topic, what is called anti-Parkinsonism. And in the previous sections we heard and we dealt with this topic, what is called fate of GABA, which is a neurotransmitter in brain. And there are different formalities, different deformalities which are related to neurotransmitters in the brain. Various diseases related to brain neurotransmitters may be anti-Parkinsonism is one of the diseases, and anti-epilepsy, nothing but epilepsy is one of the diseases, convulsions, seizures, and maybe different types of diseases related to the neurotransmitters. Whenever the neurotransmitters are up and down in the brain synthesis, we may get different types of deformalities, or we can call different types of degenerative disorders, which may lead to more and more deformatory functions of the brain. And today I came up with a topic what is called as Parkinsonism. And here I am indicating you here by the word called as Parkinsonism. So what is Parkinsonism? Actually, this is a neurodegenerative disorder. Particularly, we can see this type of disease in older people. Why? Because the synthesis may get little bit disturbed in their brain, and so they may be receiving this type of diseases related to brain. They are not much probably they are probable to older people rather than the younger ones. But it is not sure that it is only permitted to older people, but sometimes we may get, that means the younger ones also may get this type of diseases. And why it is named as Parkinsonism? Actually, there is no one particular reason why this Parkinsonism is came up to, but we have different types of reasons, not only one reasons. And we may expect that Parkinsonism can be get with the type of different reasons, and we may not be able to identify with what it is happened. And as why they named it as Parkinsonism, actually I said before, it is a neurodegenerative disorder which is done with the deformalities of the neurons, where the neurotransmitters are not submitted, the messages are not being sent from one place to the other place, and the process of body may become less and less formalities for the functions. And here we can see that it is one of the main reasons which why we have to get this particular Parkinsonism is, first reason is it is done by a gene or genal mutations in our body, where the gene is called as PINK1, and that PINK1 gene is called as Parkin. Here I make it, and other one is called as ubiquitin. And particularly as we are calling it as Parkinsonism, now we can mention that because of the gene deformalities of Parkin, that name is indicated as Parkinsonism. So we can indicate that the Parkinsonism is one of the progressive degenerative neuronal disorder where it is been occurred by the gene mutations, particularly a gene called as PINK1, which is named as Parkin. And now that was the first and foremost reason. And now we'll come to the second reason. This reason is nothing but the more and more usage, or the prolonged usage, or disturbed usage of the drugs, or the discontinuation, unprescribed prescription of the drugs can be lead to a toxin called as MPTP. And this MPTP is one of the responsible reason why we get Parkinsonism. And not only these are the different types of reasons, we have to go for another reason why, as I said before, this is done by the neurotransmitter deformalities, whether it is increase of the neurotransmitter, whether it is a decrease of neurotransmitter, or whether it is a collapse of the metabolism neurotransmitters. Here we can see that the glutamate, which is an excitatory neurotransmitter in the brain, is being more and more synthesized, and the calcium which is being submitted for the firing of the neurons is submitted more, and it happens to the cell death. So this is one of the other reason why we get Parkinsonism. And this is not only the excitatory glutamate neurotransmitter which is leading you to the cell death, but the submission of the glutamate receptors, which consists of two types of receptors. One of the receptor is called as NMDA receptors, where the calcium has to be flown up, or it has to be submitted over there, and the calcium channels which are opening onto that receptor will be submitted more and more, and so the firing of the neurons can be more. And this is also one of the particular reason why we get Parkinsonism. And well, next we'll jump to another new reason why it is called as, it is also being done by the gene mutational functions, where it is done by alpha nucleic alpha synuclein gene. And these two types of genes, particularly this is always accompanied with Parkin. So the Parkin gene and the alpha synuclein gene are the most genes which have been disturbed, so that the Parkinsonism will be eliminated out. And also we can see here, I have done with a seesaw like model. Why we are doing a seesaw model here? As I said before, this is also not only done by the glutamate neurotransmitter, the various other transmitters which are submitted in the brain are also responsible for getting of Parkinsonism. And those two main neurotransmitters which are submitting Parkinsonism is DA, nothing but dopamine, and ACH, nothing but acetylcholine. Whenever there is collapse of dopamine and whenever there is increase of ACH, we get Parkinsonism. Particularly this dopamine is one of the neurotransmitters which always submit on the GABAergic neurotransmitters in order to enhance the inhibition, or in order to submit the inhibition, or submission or suppression of the inhibition. So this is done by the dopamine. And we know that the dopamine is one of the neurotransmitters which are more and more synthesized in substantia nigra, which is a nucleus part of the brain. And regarding this substantia nigra, we'll see in the further classes how we can indicate why this dopamine has been decreased. And so now just take it into a point that decrease of dopamine in the neurotransmitter and increase of ACH in the brain are all the responsible for getting Parkinsonism. And that was another, as I've already indicated you, the dopamine is submitted on the substantia nigra, which is one of the nucleus, which is a submission or synthesis place or storage place of dopamine inside our brain. And here the main and more reasons, as I said before, the older people are more susceptible to this type of Parkinsonism rather than the younger ones. But we may not suscept that only older people will get, but sometimes whenever these type of reasons may occur inside the body, or whenever reasons are being confronted by the patient, we may get Parkinsonism. So we can say that the Parkinsonism is not only a disease related to the neurotransmitters, but it is also a disease which are related to actually degenerative neuronal disorder. Actually we can call it as disorder rather than a disease. It is a disorder related to neurons. As we know that there is different types of neurons which have been submitted by all these neurotransmitters, so the symptoms are always categorized to the process of action potential. So the symptoms which are coming from this Parkinsonism are different types of neurogenerative symptoms. So one of the neurogenerative symptoms can be indicated by a word called trap. And as I said, this is indicated by a word called trap. What is T? T is a related word called as tremors. We know that the tremors is nothing but the shaking of the hands without any immobility, and that is why this disease is also called as shaking palsy. I am writing the word here. So the Parkinsonism or also can be defined as a disease of shaking palsy. Why? Because it is always related by a word called tremors. Tremors is nothing but the shaking of the hands. Why? Because there is no any neurodegenerative disorder. Why? Because the neurons have been collapsed and may not be receive the messages from top to the bottom. That is that from the cortex to the area, so that tremors may end and we may not able to give the response to the activity. That is called as tremors. And next we'll come to R. What is R? R is always stands for rigidity. Rigidity is nothing but standing at the same position for more time. We may not able to move ourselves. We are not able to take a step forward. So the always the rigidity will be on to the same spot rather than the moving of a person. That means it is always related to the lumps. And here I want to indicate you one thing. Whenever there is a collapse of the neurotransmitters, the muscles or the bicep muscles or the tricep muscles onto the elbows or whatever it is will try to collapse. Why? Because in order to develop one triceps contractions and one bicep contractions, we need some neurotransmitters submitted from cortex area to the organ by taking various routes. So we can say that whenever the Parkinsonism is confronted by a patient, it is always related to the neurodegenerative neurons collapsing, so that all the indications of these will be confronted. And so the rigidity is given by a word, standing at the same position stiffly without any movement. So the person who is trying to take the positions walking forward or making something help of with any help their legs and limbs, they may not be able to do that performing that action, but they still stand at the same position rigidly, and only after some few seconds of that try to make more and more coordination, they can do a one step activity or they can do one activity of their own. So that is called as rigidity. And we'll come to the A. What is called A? A is called as akinesia. Here I can give you one. A, it stands for no, and kinesia is stands with walking. So akinesia means no walking. As I said here, the person will be taking more and more effort to take one step forward and to have to move from one step to the other step. And as I said, the person will be always rigid at the same spot. He may not be able to move, or sometimes he can do the slow walking or may not be have the same position, because without any pushing from backside, he may not able to move one step forward. So that can be indicated as akinesia. And here I have indicated you one word here called as bradykinesia. Here the bradykinesia is indicating you that it is slow walking. If at all there is no rigidity, if at all there is no akinesia, the person may confront with bradykinesia, nothing but the sluggish movements, the slow movements of one feet to the other feet, taking one feet in one feet, taking one feet in one feet, to making his walking, but he cannot able to have motor coordination. Why? Because all the neurotransmitters have been blocked inside the brain. So that is called as bradykinesia. And now we'll come to the last position, what is called P. P is nothing but postural inability. The word itself, it is indicating that the person may not stand straight or stand rigid onto their positions. He may droop itself, he may back up itself, he may bend himself towards last part, so that he may not able to maintain his posture ability perfectly. So the different types of postural inabilities may be confronted by the patient. Why? Because there is a collapse of the neurotransmitters into the brain, particularly the dopamine increase and acetylcholine increase. And no, these are the four main symptoms, but it is also accompanied, if at all the Parkinsonism is much more confronted. And once the Parkinsonism is being done, it cannot be treated in 1 or 2 years, but it takes more and more prolonged treatment in order to control that type of disorder. And here I gave you some more symptoms which may be confronted whenever the Parkinsonism is symptomized after 2 or 3 or 4 years. And here one word is called as dysphagia. The dysphagia is nothing but a type of condition where the thirst, the food cannot be taken in a right amounts. The power of taking food control will be little bit reduced. That is called as dysphagia. And next you have hypophonia. Hypophonia is nothing but the vocal musculatures, the soft speech will be done by the people. He may not able to speak the words so rapidly, and because hypo means less, that means less speech. If at all he wants to make some speech, he may not get it in a controlled manner or in a flow manner, but he has to abstract each and every vocal word what he is getting outside. That condition is called as hypophonia. And next we'll come to the word called as hypomimia. This is nothing but the vocal musculature, that the facial expressions may not be clear and to that, so that he may not be express his own expressions, and he may get some facial oedema, or facial expressions may not be confronted by the patient. And here you have another word called as apraxia. This is nothing but apraxia means in particularly doing that particular function. So here I gave you the word called as eyelid apraxia. So eyelid apraxia. What is the function of eyelid? The eyelid function is to open and close the eyes part. Whether it's some impurities may confronted, it has to close, or otherwise it has to open. So the functioning of opening and closing of the apraxia